Hi there, this is Katie Groves, and I'm in a bunch of different parts right now. And in this video, I'm going to attempt to talk about something I've been unable to talk about on this channel so far, but have very much wanted to, for the healing of my own self and for others who have been through similar things, or who may be wanting to understand more about monarch mind control and human trafficking. I'm going to switch into a dissociative part that can give the factual statements of what I experienced. And then I will switch into parts that hold feelings so we can talk from a more authentic emotional perspective. That is really the only way that I can do this at this time, because it is still so excruciatingly painful for all of us. Hi, I'm Kayvon. I'm a part of him. I'm going to be talking about this from a less emotional perspective. So, like many children in the SRA cult, CIA child trafficking ring that we grew up in, and like many children in other groups abroad, we were forced to undergo forced impregnations and abortions as soon as we became capable of getting pregnant. And we were told that our eggs had been extracted and implanted into surrogate mothers. We were then forced to watch those mothers carry those children to full or partial terms and then either undergo forced abortions or have their infants killed in front of us. In some cases, we were forced to kill these babies ourselves in horrific, graphically violent ways. We were also put through virtual reality simulations in which we were meant to think we were giving birth and brutally horrible things were happening to the babies. Or we were forced to experience ourselves go through forced abortions that were not surgically correct or humane in the simulations. We were forced to experience all kinds of things around the trauma of having and losing children in simulations that to us were extremely real. And we want to emphasize this, that it doesn't actually matter from the perspective of our post-traumatic stress brain if we really did experience those things physically or if they were done to us in simulations. Our body and brain experienced them as if they were happening. So from our perspective, we have lost many, many children. But we do have reason to believe that we have actually biologically gotten pregnant and undergone actual abortions, and that we may have actually had our eggs extracted and inserted into surrogate mothers and lost children that way. And we have reason to believe that our eggs have been used to produce slaves who were allowed to live. I don't know how long. It would depend on their viability as monarch programmed children, whether or not they were allowed to live past certain ages. We have reason to believe that we may still have children who are being trafficked abroad in monarch mind control trafficking centers. So now we're going to switch back and talk about this from a more emotional perspective. Katie's going to come back. Hi, I'm Katie. I don't know how to even talk about this. I'm still very numb. My system is helping me to dissociate. I'm also aware that I'm dressed like Kayvon, so I'm having a hard time being in the body. I've suffered horribly undergoing these things. The loss of a child is probably the worst trauma a person can go through. I don't really know how to compare it to being raped by my own mother. I think that any trauma involving rape and loss of children surrounding the mother-child relationship is probably the worst trauma there is, whether you are yourself the mother or the child. Even though many parts of us identify as masculine, we identify as mother in this context. Our male parts don't know how to begin to orient themselves, I don't think, towards the identity of father, because it all surrounded our physical body, reproductive organs as female. But I know we have parts that see themselves that way, that have gotten more in touch with that perspective of being father. For our feminine parts who were there directly in the body experiencing the horrors of this torture, we very much have the identity of feminine, female, and mother. It's complex with our system and with our non-binary gender identity. We've started embracing ourselves more as being a mother despite not having any contact with our children that may still be alive and having lost all the ones that we in these parts really know about. We were reading about grieving lost children, for mothers who've lost children, and someone talked about how you never stop being a mother just because you've lost your child, and you continue to have a relationship with your child even after they're gone. I definitely think that's true. I think that my children are alive inside of me, inside of my heart and soul. I feel the body trauma still in my womb, in my reproductive organs of having lost these children. I feel it in my whole body, but especially centered there. I've done a tremendous amount of trauma work around this. I still have trouble talking about it. I still feel very detached. It is something that will never leave me, and something that I hope to overcome, though, in the immediate sense of this acute suffering and the attachment trauma, so that I can have children again one day outside of monarch mind control, outside of human trafficking, so that I can actually have kids, raise kids, protect them, which I never got to fully do. I think it's important when you've undergone these traumas to remember that you're not responsible for what happened to your children. You're not at fault. If you were trafficked and lost kids, or if you lost kids to violent crime, I can't do your healing for you and help you forgive yourself beyond simply affirming you like this. But I hope that if you have been through these horrors, I hope that if you have been through these horrors, you come to understand yourself as a victim as well. I do a lot to honor my children. I do a lot to assure myself that every child I lost, both physically and in virtual reality, children who I was told were biologically mine but weren't, who I lost, were as much my children as those that biologically were. That every child I perceived to be mine and lost was my child, and my loss is real and valid. I think that's extremely important if you're a survivor of mind control. I should say to those who have actually had families who they were allowed to perceive as their families and have outside of the underground, in monarch mind control. So those who were probably older than me when they had kids, or had kids older than me if they went through what I went through as a teenager also. To people who have children right now who they're struggling to free from mind control, or who they have lost in the programming. I haven't been through that. I escaped at 17. But I have the utmost empathy and love for you. I don't know what to say. I will say that if you have lost a child to programming rather than to death, that loss is unfathomably deep, profound, and valid. As it is valid for you to call that a loss akin to a loss to death, and you have the right to grieve as deeply as you need to, even if that child may one day get free. If right now it is uncertain, if right now they are still enslaved, and especially if you yourself have gotten out and you have tremendous survivor guilt, tremendous guilt for leaving them there, or not being able to get them out, not being able to save them, while being able to save yourself, I want to remind you that you have placed yourself in a position to be of maximum help to that child if and when they ever are able to get free, and that maybe an opportunity will arise later for you to help them get free. And so for you, it is of paramount importance that you focus on your recovery from mind control, that you focus on preventing the reaccessing of yourself, and you take care of yourself first. And if you can do that, you can then down the road be of maximum help to your child if and when they're able to get free. That if you had stayed in the mind control in order to protect them, you may have done both yourself and them a disservice. It is so common for people in mind control programming to stay because they are afraid of losing a loved one, of a loved one being killed in order to punish them. They're afraid of leaving a loved one alone. They're afraid that they could do something to help them, and by leaving, they would be doing them a disservice. And while I cannot speak for everyone's individual situations, and I cannot actually tell you what the right thing to do is in your situation, if you are in a position to leave, and leaving would mean leaving others behind, there is no shame in freeing yourself. Freeing yourself may just attract others in the mind control to free themselves and join you, especially if you can speak out publicly. If you can get the attention of people who are still in the mind control. If you can make sure that your family knows that you are freeing yourself and knows that you are succeeding, and you make sure that they see you survive. I'm not saying you have to have direct contact with them, but by creating a channel like this, you may be able to show people who knew you personally from the mind control that you can break free, speak out, and survive. And that may do far more of a service for them, including your own family members and children, than anything you could have done for them while you were still crippled in the mind control with them. And I think it's important to also give yourself the grace, always give yourself the grace, that you have been through the worst fathomable trauma. And so have the people you love. And even if you make what you think was the wrong decision, You have made decisions, the best decisions you can, under torture, horror, the threat of loss of the people you love. You have done your best. And you will, in order to deprogram yourself, likely have to go through the painstaking process of evaluating your choices, forgiving yourself, and holding yourself accountable for things you think you did wrong. But I hope that when you do hold yourself accountable, you do so with the utmost grace, because that is what you deserve. I don't know what else to say. I just know that I have to love myself and affirm myself every day. And I have to feel. I think that's the ultimate thing, is that in grieving my children, I have to feel. I have to actually feel it. I let it out a little bit at a time. Thankfully, it is stored in dissociative memory. So I have some control. I have some control around it when it comes up. But when I do, I am on the floor, writhing and wailing and sobbing, and as quietly as possible as not to disturb my neighbors, screaming, reliving the horror of losing my children. And I get tremendous relief from that. I have to go through and feel the pain. I don't do it every day. I don't do it most days, but I do it consistently, and it helps. There's a saying that the only way out is through, and I believe that's true. I also believe that getting support and not doing this alone is important. I believe it's better to be alone with something than to try to share the pain with people who are still too programmed to be safe to hold space. I also understand the need to find those who actually understand what you've been through. If you can find some way to connect with others who have been through similar losses, but who may not have been through your exact situation, so they will not pose a threat to you in terms of reaccessing, that could be very beneficial to you. I think that definitely connecting with other survivors of mind control, if not in person, then online, can be helpful too. That's not something I recommend, though, to people who are too new in their healing to do with each other. I've been healing for a while, and while I'm not in that much of a space to take on other people's trauma right now, I am here to give empathy and support to you if you want someone to speak to about these things. I'll put my email in the description. It's been almost 20 minutes, so I'm going to stop here. I'm in too much pain anyway to keep going. I hope this has been helpful to people. Thank you.